Started. I started here as a Lutheran Volunteer Corps member and started to really build relationships with women from N Street and started realizing that there was just an incredible amount of talent and that there wasn't a lot of platforms or access for people to share that aspect of themselves. And that a medium that's not just words is a really powerful way to tell your story. And so there was a knitting and crocheting circle that had already been established with relationships between the church and women from N Street. There was also other art sessions and processes happening, and so there was all kinds of art stuff just all around. And I had met with Professor Sarah Stiles doing a one-to-one because of the organizing we did with Washington Interfaith Network, and found out that she had this social entrepreneurship class that needed places to do practicum. Because we had started with the knitting and crocheting circle, started having opportunities, particularly around Easter and Christmas, for women to sell their goods to the congregation, but weren't really able to do a lot more with that just because of resources or not really thinking through how to do it. And so it was this conversation with Professor Stiles that led to, oh, cool, so we could create like some kind of group and students could come help us. And it was also out of this real desire to shift the relationship the congregation members have with women from N Street. Just like any nonprofit or service agency, it's really easy for patronizing relationships or service over to happen. And really through relationships that I was gaining in establishing, really realizing that there's just so much power sitting around a circle and dreaming together. And so with Professor Stiles and a few members of the congregation and 4 women from N Street, we started dreaming up what could we do. And that's how the Community Craft Collective got started.
What's the, you talked a little bit about that relationship with the people who kind of come to Luther Place and they go to church here, and you were talking a little bit about in the meeting. Could you like expand a little bit more? Is that something that you're comfortable talking about?
It depends on how you pull it out.
Cool.
Okay. Yeah.
Great. So I think as kind of involved in that question is, how do you see this collective kind of as a part of a larger movement of restructuring how homeless people or how these kinds of collectives interact with churchgoers or general TC population?
Yeah.
So how this is important, how it's different from other things that are going on in the city. Kind of that those dreams of the collective as a unit.
Well, because really the centrality of the Community Craft Collective is relationships and community. And one of the things that can happen if you only come here on Sundays is you only get to engage, and maybe not even engage, women that are sitting in coffee house or maybe in worship. And all of the stereotypes that all of us are fed about homelessness is pervasive. So people are lazy, people are addicts, people have mental health issues, all these really negative things that really kind of demonize and make homelessness about individuals. And really what we see is that so much of it is systemic, that there is a lack of affordable housing, there's a lack of living wage jobs in the district. And so it is important that churches start to be part of the innovation of figuring out how can social entrepreneurship be part of addressing the issue, the systemic issue of homelessness, because really it's around how the systems create these spaces in which when people lose a spouse or people get sick or people don't have the opportunity to have living wage jobs, find themselves needing support systems like N Street Village. Or, you know, I mean, not to say that addiction and mental health aren't an aspect of that, but that's not the full picture. And so the Community Craft Collective is so important because what it does is allows other people to engage the full power that women are. They get to share their own stories using their own words, and it's not only about sharing the story, but also about sharing this dream of building a community together that you know, is about lifting each other up, but also getting some change in our pockets. And so that's a shifting of how service agencies usually relate to people. It's usually about the service provider having something that you need. But really what the Community Craft Collective is part of is changing the story of this church for us to understand that we really need each other, that our own liberation, that our own sense of spirituality, our own sense in relationship to God makes it necessary for us to have relationships.